Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella, Herrera. Maricella, how are you holding up coming off of Mobilize Women Week?
That about sums it up. I'm tired. I'm coming down from an adrenaline rush, and honestly, I'm just ready for more. I'm ready for taking all of the amazing ideas we heard, all of the incredible people we connected with, or I know I connected with, and get to work. Get to work and making this place even better than it can be. And by this place, I mean the world, because it honestly does need some help.
Yes. Yeah, I'm inspired. I am energized to do a lot and to do a lot more and to do a lot better. Certainly, we had important conversations on everything from women in politics to technology and bias, human-centric policies, mental health, changing face of business, being advocates, allies, and accomplices, and a whole lot more. I have to say, I learned a great deal listening to the speakers, just sharing in their wisdom and insights. But what struck me even deeper was with our opportunities to really connect on a more personal level with our community. From the mentoring meetups to the roundtables, I was on the corporate executive roundtable. I know you led one as well, Maricella.
Yeah.
And the bias roundtables, like all I'm hearing is just, how deep those conversations went and those insights on the experience of others, learning from others. So you take the inspiration of the speakers, the deep one-on-one conversations that are happening in the roundtables and in the mentoring meetups, and then we're propelling you to action because the conversation doesn't stop here and there's so much work to do. And so I agree. I'm ready to mobilize. I'm just so pumped up right now.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I'm very happy we got the chance to really show attendees our Ellevate secret sauce, our Ellevate, the amazingness that comes with the Ellevate community. And that's what happens in these smaller roundtables and mentoring meetups where you get a chance to connect with the amazing, smart, ambitious, kind, supportive, open and honest people in our community. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful to see that we can have these deep conversations and that we can actually create change. Like, there's strength in numbers, and we are a growing force that will mobilize to make the world a better place.
Yep.
Gives me hope.
And I have to say, Maricella, I don't know if this happened to you, but there was a few times that I was in sessions and someone would say, "Oh my goodness, I know your voice. I listened to the podcast." And it was literally, it happened a few times. And that made me smile. It's
That's
really
cool.
great to kind of see all of the different touch points coming together.
I didn't have the podcast call out this time, but I did have someone say to me, "Oh, I saw you on LinkedIn Live, and you look so happy and so pleased and so passionate about the work you do." And I'm like, "Yep."
Making the rounds across all the channels. It's technology. There you go. But technology and bias. I encourage everyone to watch that video.
Yes.
There's some stuff going on, and you should know about it. And you can find the video at ellevatenetwork.com. We've got tons of videos and recaps from the events. So if you were unable to make Mobilize Women, do not worry, because you can still tune into the content and learn and then engage with our community on these important themes. I think this is a great entry point to my conversation, my guest today, because as we're talking about taking action and specifically about these moments in our lives, the things that inspire us, that catalyze us to, follow the path that we're on. Our guest, Kim Cordova, really touches on this. She's currently the president of the United Food Commercial Workers Union Local 7 in Colorado and Wyoming. She's the VP of the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union. She is supporting over 25,000 workers within Colorado and Wyoming and more internationally, and is the first woman to do so in the 150 years of Local 7, the first woman to be president. Her story is inspiring. I learned a great deal. I think it's really important too that we're having conversations with guests that do different type of work, right? It's not always about being in the corporate office. It's about ways that we explored the different career paths, the different opportunities for impact and change, and what it is that sets us on that path, what inspires us. And so talking to Kim just really left me also, ready to take action and to do more and to learn more.
I'm very excited to hear the conversation.
Well, let's get to it. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.
I would love to start just with a little bit about your story. Could you share who you are and how you got to where you are today?
Certainly. So I am the president of United Food and Commercial Workers Local 7, the largest private sector union in Colorado and Wyoming. So I represent roughly 30,000 frontline grocery workers, healthcare, food processing, packing workers, barbers, cosmetologists throughout the state of Colorado and Wyoming. And I'm also an international vice president representing about roughly 1.3 million frontline workers in the United States and in Canada.
Wow, I can tell this is going to be a great conversation. Lots to dig into here, but I wanted to start to understand a little bit more what was the catalyst for you to become such an influential voice in this labor movement.
I was introduced to the labor movement at a young age. I started my career when I was in high school working for a grocery store, and it was a union store. And I actually didn't know much about the labor movement when I first started. I was just there making extra money, as a high school student. And I aspired originally to be a doctor. And that was my goal. That was my plans. And I actually was involved in a robbery. I was the victim of a robbery. I was working at the check stand and I was robbed at gunpoint. And my employer suspended me for cooperating in the robbery. And it was at that point that, I found value in the union. I called my union rep. They stepped in. I was placed back at work with full pay. And I think that was the first time I seen that, my employer or really how employers really don't care about you or put profit in front of people. And from that point, I became a young union steward, a young activist. I started to attend union meetings. I participated in negotiations. I was on the bargaining teams. I went to work for the local in 1993 as a union organizer, and I was very successful. I did a lot of internal organizing and organized workers on the grocery side, and also did some community organizing. And I became a business agent after that. And then I moved up I was the trainer at my union. I actually did a lot of training around contract interpretation. I was a trustee on our pension plan and our health plan. And I just really, my life changed. I wanted to be a doctor, but then I found a way to help people by representing them. And so I just took a different turn in my life, and I never looked back. And 36 years later, I'm the president of my own union.
I love that story. I mean, because it starts with this time of great vulnerability and fear and, probably frustration in your life with what happened. You were held up at gunpoint and then lost your job, or I think put on leave because of that. And someone stepped in to advocate for you and to have your back. And especially in the workplace, it's, those sponsors or allies, advocates, those that we can call on for support can really change the trajectory of someone's career. And now, just as you said, you had planned on being a doctor and helping people through medicine, but yet the work you're doing today and helping people and being their advocate is incredibly powerful and important.
Absolutely, yes.
Would you mind sharing for our listeners that maybe don't understand enough about unions, organized labor efforts, really what that entails and what that means? Could you share a little bit more depth about what unions are and why they exist?
Well, yeah, I mean, unions are so important to this country. They really expose corporate greed and also the systemic racism within our own economy. And labor unions, through collective action and through people power, are able to make that change that workers need so much in this country. A lot of people don't understand that workers are responsible for company success, and they should share in the company's success, for their employer. And that's something that, labor unions bring to the table, not only the value of collective power, but also to stop so many of the social injustices that we see in this country. I mean, being a woman and in some jobs or sectors, you experience that type of discrimination where you may do the same work as your counterpart, but may be paid less. In union contracts, we stop that type of discrimination. Fighting for access to quality and affordable health care is so important. Equal pay for equal work. It is because of the labor movement that so many of us enjoy the 40-hour work week, enjoy overtime pay, enjoy pension plans and good quality health care. In some of the non-union sectors or jobs, you see that they don't have that. They don't see overtime pay, only that's granted by federal law. If you live in a conservative state and you have a low minimum wage, you'll see that pay is so much less. Where if you live in a state where there are stronger union rights, collective bargaining rights, or easier access to join or form a union, you'll see that jobs are compensated higher, and you don't see those kind of problems within those type of industries. So it is so important to have the labor movement here. And really, the labor movement has been responsible for the middle class. And without labor, we would have a dual system, the haves and have-nots and no have-somes. And, I'm proud to stand up and advocate for workers in Colorado and Wyoming and throughout this country. And I'm very grateful, even for myself, that I was able to belong to a union. I mean, I bought my first house on my own because I was a union member not too long after high school. And it was because I had a really good union job. And so, I mean, there's just so much value that the labor movement brings to this country that we really have to push, our elected leaders to strengthen our labor laws in this country so that more people can benefit from the labor movement.
I'm sure that during a normal time, the role that you play and how you're protecting your workers is a nonstop job. It's very important. We live in a very dynamic world, but especially during this time when the spotlight has been shown on essential workers and the importance of the work that they do, but also the greater risk that they're facing and a lot of the lack of support that they received during this time, and why we need to talk about this and to do more and to do better. And your UFCW Local 7 represents more than 25,000 grocery, meatpacking, food processing, healthcare, cosmetology, and barbershop workers. And you are on the front lines of helping them and supporting them. And so what were some of the biggest challenges that were faced?
I think if you're talking about what happened in 2020 or what has happened so far, is especially around this, the COVID pandemic, is that really the COVID really exposed the reality of what essential frontline workers go through every day. That they work, especially in the industries, the workers that I represent, grocery workers, food processing workers, healthcare workers. No matter if it's a man-made or natural disaster, they're always working. They're always going to be on the front line. And really, what happened this year is that there was so much exposed in the need of stronger safety laws and uh, uh, oversight around safety, and just how valuable essential workers are, to keeping this country going. I mean, you look at those that work within the food supply chain. I mean, if those workers, if you don't keep them safe, then our country will starve, right? Or our healthcare workers, and just the need for, those safety protections to provide personal protective equipment. I mean, just having masks inside a hospital for a healthcare worker or a grocery worker or our packing house workers. I mean, it really, this year really has shown why so many need a union. You see a lot of these non-union workers like Amazon workers, or you've seen workers at Whole Foods. They, band together and went on, day-long strikes or whatnot to fight for the essential things that, I mean, just the very few things that the essential things that they need that labor, union members already have, but that we need so much more of. The other thing is the need for paid leave. That was the other struggle. A lot of workers don't have sick pay. And when you have a pandemic like this happening, workers should not have to choose between going to work and potentially dying or exposing themselves or their family to something so dangerous like COVID, this COVID-19, or facing financial devastation. And so paid family leave, paid sick leave, I mean, this is something that I think this year, this country has seen why it's so important that we have those type of benefits, protections and personal protective equipment, why we need verifiable and enforceable safety laws. Frontline workers, essential workers are dying in this country, and they need an advocate. They need to have easier access to join the union as well, opportunities.
Thank you for sharing that, and I think it is really important for all of us to know, especially myself, as a consumer or as a community member, in the ways that we understand, who's impacted by our behaviors and, how we can advocate. I know there's a lot of important work being done right now around, buyer advocacy and, who you spend your money with and how you support these facilities that are doing good work. But at Ellevate, something we talk about quite a bit is that aspect of community within the workplace, and how your peers are standing up for you and advocating for you. Have you seen anything specifically during this time with COVID and a lot of the racial injustice in our world where your community is banding together to support one another?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've seen workers unite. If you take the actions that have been publicized around this country in packing houses, where thousands of workers have been exposed because of the way that they work. There is no way you can social distance, the need for personal protective equipment. And, around this time, this is the first time in my career that I've seen the workers to this extent band together in unity and really rally around each other, because they have common issues. Now they want to go home. They want to, when you clock in, you want to make sure you go home in the same condition, right? And they see that we've lost workers. Unfortunately, this COVID, has been very deadly for my membership. We lost 6 workers in one of our packing houses and 3 of our grocery workers. And you've seen the community of our membership just really, really understand how how much they need each other and how they really need to stick together to fight for the protections that everybody needs. But not only for themselves, you look at healthcare workers fighting for the protection for their patients as well too. And also for the grocery workers. I mean, they're wearing a mask to protect their customer, and then they're having to go through this whole political fight of customers wearing a mask to protect them. And they feel so vulnerable, that they need each other because in some cases, the employers have abandoned them. In some places, the consumer or customers or the communities have turned this pandemic into a political, divisive type of, issue, especially around masks, or even not looking at, packing house workers as human beings and them dying simply because many of them, are people of color, refugees, women, or an older workforce. They feel very, very vulnerable. They feel, a lot of the workers feel like they don't matter to the outside, but to each other, they know what they're going through. And that's something that I'm really, really proud of. Our membership has really rallied behind each other.
That's amazing. I appreciate just the depth of insights into some of these considerations around safety and protection. My brother-in-law actually is a union carpenter, and so I know for him, of course, everyone's wearing masks on the job, but they have alarms on their hard hats so that if they get within 6 feet of someone, the alarms go off. And it's a way for them to make sure that they're social distancing and staying away from each other. And yeah, I mean, he says at first it was a little bit weird because it's different, but he appreciates how it's keeping him safe. And it becomes very commonplace once it's part of your everyday. Have you seen other innovative solutions come to the surface that, maybe we'll continue to adopt into the future?
I think that social distancing is something that has really is really important. I mean, especially for these type of jobs where you don't have any control of your environment. You're a grocery worker and you have no idea if a sick customer is coming in, and customers approach you and are very close to you because you're in a service, type of environment. And I think that, we see this happen when the flu comes in, but you have something very deadly, like this type of virus, the coronavirus that came in. I think social distancing is something, the masks are something I think is going to be our new normal now. The other thing is around testing. And also, we've seen in some of the industries different type of protective equipment like face shields and or dividers within these industries where workers work so close to each other. But in some of the industries, where we represent workers, you still have a lot of work around line speed or production speed. It's unsafe as it is when you're working in a fast-paced environment anyway, but we really need to slow things down so that workers can be safe. Yeah, but I think that those kind of motion detectors are good. But really, we have an uphill battle. You may have some of those interventions in, but really what we need to do is put in place paid sick leave and stuff so that you don't have a work while sick culture in a lot of the workplaces where you can spread either some sort of illness or a virus like this. And in general, if you're sick, you should stay home and get better. If your child's sick or you have a sick family member, you should have paid leave. You should not have to work under that kind of stress, wondering if you're going to face financial devastation or risk getting somebody else, exposing somebody else to an illness. And so even though COVID has brought some awareness and there have been some changes in the way we work, we still have a long way to go. I mean, there needs to be some pretty big fixes in our country to fix really simple things that can really help mitigate loss of life in the workplace.
Absolutely. Kim, I want to talk more personally about you as a leader during this time. It's been hard for many of us as we're thinking about the physical and mental health of our employees. We're thinking about our customers. We're thinking more broadly about the world and probably navigating a lot of this on a personal level. Especially for me, it's hard to look into the future. And as a leader, I'm constantly, going further out into the future. Where are we going? What do we need to do to ensure success in the future? What's the vision? But there's so many unknowns, and I think we have a shift in our purpose, not just as leaders, but within our organizations and what our organizations can do. So what has this personally been like for you during this time when you're making tough calls, when you're grieving the loss of some of the members in your community? What have been some of the lessons that you've come out of this with?
It really takes an emotional toll on you at times, grieving, wondering, are you doing everything that you can? What else can you do? I will tell you, I very rarely sleep anyway, but I mean, just staying up at night thinking about, what else could we do to help our workers? I mean, when you see fear on workers' face, or you see their despair when they feel so, you know, in some cases betrayed by their employer, right? They're looking at you as a leader of what are you going to do to help us, or and in some things you have control over and some things you don't. Like for example, in the packing house, when the president of the United States issues an executive order to force these workers to, these plants to stay open regardless of workplace safety. Workers are treated as fungible widgets or disposable objects or as sacrificial employees. And as president, I'm president of the union, but, can you override, what can you do to, um, you know, intervene or help protect workers when you have, government leaders that really don't care? You get so much pushback, by employers for the sake of putting profit first. There's a lot of pressure as a leader that you have, but if not us, then who? And you just have to have that will to keep fighting and to keep pushing, because we have so many people that depend on us. And as a woman in this role and as a union president, there's not very many of us that serve in this role. And so, you have to be the loudest voice in any room anyway, especially, well, you'll take me. I'm one of the very few women in this country that serve in this role, but being a Latino woman, in some of these industries where it's male dominated, dominant, and I have to, be stronger and louder than anybody else. But I was built for that. I've always had a strong sense of social justice, and I believe that, my absolute job is to make the lives of my members better. It's about them. And we have to just keep fighting. And I it's really, you see all of this, the systemic racism you see that's going on within our country, within our economy. You're seeing the social, all of the social issues around us. And we're living in such a divided America that, you just have to have that will to keep pushing and fighting through it. So many, like I said, so many people depend on us that we can't just throw our hands up and give up. We have to find creative ways to, elevate our, amplify the message or our members' agenda, and really push for the changes that they deserve, that they need in their workplace. And we have to do it for the future of for our families and for this country. We have to. Otherwise, we will, like I said, we're going to have, you're going to have the very privileged and people that see opportunity, and you'll see people with no opportunity in this country, and that's an America I don't want to live in. So we have to continue to keep fighting for these workers, for our membership.
Thank you, Kim. Such powerful words. I want to end with our lightning round, and it may seem a little off key, given just the importance of this conversation, but it's a way to understand you better as a human, and to connect with our community. And, it's kind of fun too. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and if you could answer in a sentence or less. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
What's your favorite day of the week?
Monday.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I never sleep, so I'm both.
Do you not sleep because of insomnia, or because you're just constantly going?
I'm constantly going. I'm a thinker. My brain never shuts off.
I love that. Who's your dream dinner guest?
Jesus.
What is your pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve are the stickers that they put on glassware and shopping stickers. That's a crazy pet peeve, but it drives me crazy. That and traffic.
Oh, I live in New York City, so I hear you on that one. What's your Monday morning staple? So activity or beverage, food that kicks your week off.
I am an avid energy. That's probably why I don't sleep. But my Monday is starting off with an energy drink called Bang.
Bang! I've not heard of that. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What's your favorite recent read?
The Art of Woo.
Art of Woo. Okay. What did you like about it?
It's a book about strategy. It's about bargaining and how to sell your ideas. It's a really great book.
Okay, excellent. What's your top self-care practice?
Orange Theory. I don't know if you've heard of Orange Theory, but I love the challenge and the whole workout process.
Perfect. And Kim, what's one thought you'd like to leave with our listeners here today?
That they matter, that they have a voice, and that they deserve a piece of the success that they create for their employer. As if they are an essential, or any worker, if you have an employer and you're performing a job for them, you matter, and you deserve to share a piece of their success. And I think that's really important for people to have that type of self, you can call it self-love, or recognizing just how valuable you really are, that you matter.
Perfect. You matter. I love that. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. It has been such an honor to hear about your story, the important work that you do, and to raise awareness for all of us, about those that work alongside us every day, and what their experiences are like, and how we can do more and do better to create that equity and equality that we seek in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes, give us 5 stars, and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.